Okay, stop me if you've heard this one before. A coach from Texas becomes the head coach at a middle to lower tier SEC program. There's a lot of hype in the beginning as the previous season with a defensive-minded head coach from outside the Southeast failed to make a bowl game. And this coach is known for his offensive scheme. The coach crushes an FCS school with Eastern in its name in week 1, only to go out west and lose by a touchdown the next week, and then come back home and get destroyed by a group of 5 program. The only remaining win that team would see would come later in the season against another group of 5 program, finishing 2-10 in year 1, and really not that competitive in pretty much any of the later games. We all know that what I just said applies to Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State in 2024, but maybe what you didn't realize is that the entire last paragraph I just read is also entirely true for Chad Morris's first year at Arkansas. Chad Morris is now widely regarded as one of the worst hires in college football history, and rightfully so, as things didn't improve in his second year and were arguably worse. And I argue that there's a non-zero chance that Jeff Lebby's fate could be the same at Mississippi State. I mean, the circumstances that created both hires were vastly different. After Mike Leach tragically died, Mississippi State hired the defensive coordinator Zach Arnett to be the head coach for 1 year in 2023. Instead of trying to maintain some semblance of continuity, Arnett decided to do a complete philosophy change on offense, and this, I think, was his undoing. I mean, I say that, but it wasn't like the defense, Arnett's specialty, was even that good that year either. Mississippi State went from 9 wins to 5 wins, and Arnett was fired. And due to the high roster volatility and 3 coaches in 3 years, the Mississippi State program regressed to the state it's in now. I don't really think anyone would have won last year. To balance the amount of guys that left, Mississippi State had a lot of transfers added in this cycle, in what I like to call the Neil Brown special, just adding anyone you can in the hopes that it saves your job. But another thing about Lebby that was very similar to Morris at Arkansas is that both of them only speak one language, coach speak.
No, I will continue to call it. I think that's important for me as we get started in this thing, having one voice as we move forward. As we're putting together the staff, still having the ability to hire an offensive coordinator from a title standpoint to be able to take some of the day-to-day and be able to go have total control of some of the organizational things that go on with whether it be practice or game planning, so that I do have the ability to be a head coach.
Have you ever had a dream that you could.
Trying to get these guys to answer a question about anything is a losing battle. And while Morris was at least just secretive in his own way, but firm about it, Jeff Lebby looks like a deer in the headlights anytime he's being interviewed. I mean, Mr. Fat Boy looks more nervous that he might give someone any useful information than I've seen any human being be nervous about anything ever. I honestly feel bad for him. Like, okay, maybe he has a fear of public speaking, but honestly, at that point, maybe being an SEC head coach isn't the job for you. But regardless, the judgment of how you do as a head coach isn't about whether you can give a good interview, but whether you can win football games. So let's go through my 2025 season prediction for the Mississippi State team. On this channel, how we predict seasons is a bit different from the way other channels do it, so allow me to explain. I don't pick individual games on a win-loss basis. I think people that do that don't really think enough about what's really trying to be accomplished in a season prediction. There's almost no way to know what injury situation will happen, which teams will be surprises that come up late in the schedule, and where upsets will happen. So instead, because the average team will lose some easy games and win some hard ones, I base win probabilities on likelihoods of a win, rounded to the nearest 0.25. This way, it accounts for the uncertainty that's baked into the season to give a rough idea of how likely it is that a team wins each game. I'd also like to point out that I used this method to pick Florida's record exactly at 7-5 last year, when pretty much everyone else wasn't picking them to even make it to a bowl game. So there is at least some merit to doing it this way. So, without further ado, State plays at Southern Miss for their first game, which I'm assigning a 0.75 rating to. I went back and forth with myself on what to rate this one, either 0.75 or 0.5, but I landed on 0.75. I understand that Coach Huff is really good at his job, and it was actually quite puzzling why he even took the Southern Miss job when he has little ties to the area. and seem to be doing pretty good at Marshall in the exact same conference. I do know there were some contract disputes there, though. One point I'll elaborate on later is that both of the Group of 5 programs Mississippi State plays against this year have coaches that have beaten Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, which isn't exactly a good thing to hear if you're a Mississippi State fan. The only reason I made this a .75 is that I expect there to be a lot of Mississippi State fans in the crowd, with this being in Hattiesburg, and I also expect Southern Miss to have to rebuild a lot, because they were the worst team in the Sun Belt last year. Arizona State I've given a .5. I'll probably get some pushback for this, but it's what I believe. Every year there seems to be a team or teams that exceeds expectations, that gets a lot of hype in the next offseason, only to not have that same success the next year and drop off quite a bit. Arizona State could be a team like that, same with Indiana. I'm not going to definitively say it'll be them, but it could be. And even if Arizona State drops off, they could still beat Mississippi State. And even if they don't drop off, they could still lose to Mississippi State. Starkville is a tough place to play, for all the faults the team has had on the field. I know Arizona State is a trendy pick, even with a lot returning, but there have been teams like that weren't expected to be good, that had a good season, and didn't live up to the hype the next year. 2021 Iowa State comes to mind, 2023 TCU comes to mind. Teams like that were trendy picks that people just assumed would be as good the next year, and Arizona State is one of those, which is why I give the Bulldogs at least a shot in this one. I mean, as bad as Mississippi State has been and was last year, and as good as Arizona State was, Mississippi State played them to within a touchdown. Alcorn State is a 1, no explanation needed. Northern Illinois is a .5. This is what Southern Miss would have been had they not been just so bad last year and had to rebuild from basically the ground up. Northern Illinois has beaten a Power 4 team 3 of the last 4 years. Georgia Tech in 2021, Boston College in 2023, and Notre Dame last year, for Notre Dame's only regular season loss. The candidates for them this year are a mortal Maryland team and this Mississippi State team, which is likely to be terrible again. I would be worried if I were a Bulldog fan. This one is definitely losable. Tennessee is a .5. With all the Nico stuff, Tennessee is likely to be worse at quarterback. For me, what this SEC season comes down to for Mississippi State is how well their defense plays. And I think even if State's defense is bad, they might likely be bailed out in this game by Tennessee's lack of functional offense starting out, when the passing game is a huge question and the running game can be entirely focused on. I mean, even with Nico last year, Tennessee was shut out in no fewer than 3 first halves last year, and 1 second half. Tennessee will likely be in some low-scoring games again this year, which could include this one, meaning the higher variance in outcomes makes the upset possible, especially in this environment. Texas A&M is going to be .25. There's not really much to think about here. A&M's more talented and is playing at home, and State will be without their best wide receiver here because he plays for A&M now, which should be telling about both programs. At Florida is also .25. Florida's got one of the best quarterbacks in this conference, and this is one of the more gettable games on their schedule, so I'd be surprised to see them drop this one, because if they drop this one, there's not really a lot of opportunity for other wins on the schedule. Texas at home is a .25. Even with Texas having questions at the skill positions, I still think the talent gap is such that I don't really give State much of a chance in this one. At Arkansas is a .5. This is one of those games where one or both coaches could be fired before it happens. Arkansas has a good quarterback with a questionable team around him, and Mississippi State is just questionable, period. Even though I do think Arkansas will be the better team here, I do still think they could be in quit mode just enough that they could lose this game. Someone does have to win this one, unfortunately. Georgia is a .25, and I'm being generous by not making it a 0. Same with the Texas game, honestly. At Missouri is a .5. Missouri could probably be a lot worse this year, and I expect them to be. And while I did see their quarterback do good things at Penn State, I don't know that the team around him will be the kind of team that can get margin on anyone, really. So while on paper Missouri is the better team, they won't have the kind of team, in my opinion, that can really pull away in an SEC game. Those offensive skill positions will downgrade, in my opinion. Ole Miss at home is a .25. I actually do think Ole Miss could be worse this year, and there is a slight chance that they could be this year's version of Florida State, but I do still think that they're quite a ways away from Mississippi State. If there's a chance for State here, it could be that Ole Miss's defense takes a massive step back and that ends up being their undoing. I could definitely see that happening. Even with that though, it's a small chance. So in total, the record predicted based on these probabilities for Mississippi State is 5-7, which is actually a little high for where I expect them to be. Because there's always a small chance they could win against big opponents, this scale is going to inflate worse teams' records and deflate better teams' records, and I'm still trying to figure out a fix for that. So if I was going to expect to be wrong, I think I'd err on the side of State being worse than 5-7 versus better. There is a chance Lebby goes full Chad Morris and doesn't win a single SEC game and gets fired mid-season. I do think there are enough early chances for them that it is possible that they could win some games and get some momentum, but I don't see this team getting to a bowl. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and a subscription. It really helps out the channel. And leave the team that you want me to preview next in the comments below.